All right, what's up, everybody? We're going through the attributes of God by A.W. Pink, and chapter one is the solitariness of God. We just went through the preface, and now we're going to go through the solitariness of God. And I think what I'm going to do is just read until I hit a spot that we need to talk about, and then I'm going to quit, and then we're going to make another video on the next part of chapter one. The title of this article is perhaps not sufficiently explicit to indicate its theme. This is partly due to the fact that so few today are accustomed to meditate upon the personal perfections of God. Comparatively few of those who occasionally read the Bible are aware of the awe inspiring and worship provoking grandeur of the divine character. That God is great in wisdom, wondrous in power, yet full of mercy, is assumed by many to be almost common knowledge. But to entertain anything approaching an adequate conception of his being, his nature, his attributes, as these are revealed in the Holy Scripture, is something which very, very few people in these degenerate times have attained unto. God is solitary in his excellency. Okay, so I'm going to stop for just a second here in the midst of this paragraph and say I think there's something that we are not getting. We say the right things, and then we even sing the worship songs that say these things that we don't understand. And if we're honest, I think there are some things we sing in worship, and we're just like, well, I don't quite believe that, even though I'm claiming it as I sing it. And even there are some things I don't even understand that we're saying about God, even though I'm singing it and claiming it as I sing it. So, and he says, to entertain anything approaching an adequate conception of his being, his nature, his attributes, as these are revealed in Holy Scripture, is something which very, very few people in these degenerate times have attained to. And then he moves to a very clear, I think what he's doing is he's saying, hey, we're going to be super duper clear about each of these attributes, and so that we can really separate God from this idea of God that we sort of have, right? We have this like, yeah, we have an almost view of God, and what he's saying is we need to understand a few things that are black and white, that are clear, and these things are going to help us really appreciate who God is. God is solitary, back to the book, in his excellency. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praise, doing wonders? From Exodus 15:11. In the beginning, God, from Genesis 1:1. There was a time, if time could be called, when God, in the unity of his nature, though subsisting equally in three divine persons, dwelt all alone. In the beginning, God. There was no heaven there where his glory is now particularly manifested. There was no earth to engage his attention. There were no angels to hymn his praises, no universe to be upheld by the word of his power. There was nothing, no one but God. And that, not for a day, a year, or an age, but from everlasting. During a past eternity, God was alone, self-contained, self-sufficient, self-satisfied, in need of nothing. Had a universe, had angels, had human beings been necessary to him in any way, they also had been called into existence from all eternity. The creating of them, when he did, added nothing to God essentially. He changes not, Malachi 3:6. Therefore, his essential glory can be neither augmented nor diminished. Okay, so let's clarify this case real quick, because he's speaking in an older version of English that we don't hear a lot today. So the sentence structure is a little different. So he's saying, had a universe, had angels, had human beings been necessary to him in any way, they also had been called into existence from all eternity. What he's saying here is, hey man, if they had been necessary, he would have created them from eternity. They would have been there from eternity. And obviously very hard to grasp for us. The creating of them, when he did, added nothing to God essentially. So in other words, and when he says essentially in this context, the meaning is it added nothing to his essence, right? To his most core being, right? To his being, right? It had nothing to his being. It didn't complete God, right? In the way that we sometimes poetically say, "You complete me," right? To someone we love, your wife. His essential glory can neither be augmented nor diminished, and so because he changes not, right? He's always the same. We read that this is he quotes Pink quotes from Malachi 3:6, but we know this that from reading the Word that God doesn't change. He was the same yesterday, today, and forever. We know that. And so if he doesn't change and we don't add anything to his essence, like we bring him joy, and Pink is going to get to this because I did read this chapter. Pink is going to get to this. And that's a question. We should probably talk about questions we have as we read. But I think that's one of the main questions is, well, then, if he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, if he never changes, and we don't add anything to him, we don't actually enrich him in that way, in his essence, then first of all, that's a good case that he's solitary. That is what solitary means in this context. That he is self-sufficient. That he doesn't change. That I liken it to when you go into a conversation and you're trying to please the other person. You say things and you're hoping for a reaction. Then there are times when you go into a situation and you're like, I'm not asking your permission. I'm not trying to please you. I am here to tell you something or do something. And in those situations, you're not looking for any. You are sure about what you're doing. It doesn't matter what happens around you. This is what you're about. And I think that that's a little tiny glimpse of God's self-sufficiency. He doesn't come here to please man. He doesn't come here to change for man. Now, the question remains, though, that, well, why did he create us? And was he, this calls into question this whole idea of like, oh, God is desperate for me, like in the worship, some of the, worship songs, like a boyfriend, like he's, or like a, like a husband, which he is to the church, but oh, he's desperate for me. He's just lost his mind because he's, desperate and reckless love, and all this stuff. But in reality, he changes not. He doesn't need us, and yet he created us for his pleasure and for his glory. And so, although we don't add substance to him, what Pink is saying is there is a sense in which we can glorify him without adding to his substance. So we'll see how he explains that in the next video, but I think we're good for now, and we'll talk with you guys next time.